We are geek-centric, and you can be too. Love ya. Laters. Bye. Get home safe, guys. Peace.
Hey, Casey, how you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you? How are you guys doing?
We're doing great, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We're excited to chat with you and learn more about the games program at Tribeca Festival. But to kick things off, when people hear the title Senior Programmer of Tribeca Games, they may not really know what that means. So I'm curious. And we do this often with certain new roles that we learn. We ask to kind of describe it from this perspective of what do your friends and family think you do, and what does your role actually involve?
Oh man, such a pleasure to be with you guys. But this is a great question to start off with because, of course, when someone hears the term programmer, I think they automatically jump to you're a coder, right? You're spending time, exactly, Nate. You're spending time behind a keyboard, and I actually have led that life a little bit as well, considering I have a computer science degree. So to your point about family and friends, they're as confused as can be, but thankfully I've been in the programming curatorial chair for about a decade now, or a little over a decade. So
Wow.
as far as the sort of nuances or what it means, essentially you are a curator. You are someone who, from a cultural perspective, are a quote unquote tastemaker. Some people might say you're a gatekeeper. That's a whole other conversation. But really it is someone who has a passion for some form of artistic medium. I've done curatorial work on the literature side, and now obviously with games and film. And so specifically through the avenue of film festivals, specifically as it pertains to Tribeca, that means we have competitions where folks all across the globe can submit pieces of work, submit projects that can be in various stages of development or production. We see things in prototype, rough cut stages, so on and so forth. And we make an assessment based on largely potential and how we think the final thing will take shape to provide a platform for these creators to get their projects out here and get some sense of discoverability, some sense of momentum behind them, hopefully before there is a bigger launch, or even before the launch, a longer sort of life, whether that be through other festivals, other museums, sort of curatorial spaces across the world. But that's the overall sort of center of what it means to be a programmer. As far as my specific title, Senior Programmer Film and Games, at Tribeca, that means I oversee our US narrative film competition. So through that space, we typically select every year 8 to 12 films that are all world premieres, and it's meant to showcase the best and brightest, right, of the US independent scene. And then I'm also the head of games, so I run our full games program at the festival, which includes typically year over year 7 to 9 selections. This year I selected 12. I keep saying it's because I'm a masochist, and honestly, that's really like sitting well with my heart because it feels true to spirit. And then beyond that, we also host a number of special events as well, because what we try to do is reshape some of the cultural conversation revolved around games and really help audiences understand the sort of process, the creative pipeline, and procedures or production procedures it takes to take something from concept, to take something from prototype and gray boxes, all the way to the final sort of deliverable, that gold status game that we see out in the wild for release 1.0, as it were, these days.
I love that you brought up the term tastemaker, because I think when I'm looking at like where do my influences come from for where do I want to go to play games, and a lot of it is kind of the different reviewers and different media outlets that I follow, but mostly I'm trying to see, do I align with them in terms of what their tastes are in games? And if so, I'll take their opinion a little bit higher. But for yourself, you've got so many other things beyond just what you enjoy. But I do want to ask a question a little bit about that, and kind of digging into you, Casey, as a gamer. What was the first video game you ever played that made you realize games could be viewed more as art or an experience comparable to a great film?
Oh man, that's such a great question. I think for me, it was the first BioShock. And I was still very much in high school at that time. Everyone can do the math if they want to with regards to that. But yeah, that first BioShock project really was where, for me, I could see the sort of coalescence between all the different mediums. You could see the cinematic prospects and the sort of storytelling or narrative experience that that team led by Ken Levine was trying to put together. But then you also saw how the gameplay really sort of influenced that, right? And the level of impact your choice, your decisions as a player had within shaping that world. And really experiencing that from end to end. So that was really the one. And I will say from there also the God of War series, the initial first three projects in that franchise, in particular God of War 3. I think I mentioned this on a prior pod as well, but like that opening fight against Poseidon, that's one of the most legendary moments for me personally in games. And again, it really sort of heightens the specific ways that games can be a unique experience onto itself, a unique art form onto itself, that is pulling and drawing from these different things, but you can't replicate that. I'm sorry. I'm best of luck to Amazon on the series, but like you're not going to get the same emotional, evocative response from me, right? When I am making those choices, when I'm controlling Kratos and swinging those blades and having that impact in that fight. So I think those two definitely come to mind. And then of course you have different things like Uncharted. I remember when I first played Gears. People don't remember now, but back in the day, before Nvidia was known for everything they're known for now, we would talk about Nvidia as like, does this laptop, this computer have an NVIDIA graphics chip that's going to allow me to play some of these games, right?
Yeah.
And that's when games for Windows was like the label on everything primarily. So that's how I first got into Gears of War. It wasn't necessarily through an Xbox, although that came about a bit later. And I remember how impactful that was for me and just spending time in that world. So I think those are a few sort of key markers for me that really made it clear that this is a medium that can stand on its own 2 feet, but also provide parallels for conversation if you're trying to bring other people who may not be as interested or may not find it as accessible to find a pathway in.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, because I think, you brought up God of War. For me, it was The Last of Us. I think, I've always seen video games as like, as art, as an expression of art, but like that merging of an experience that felt so similar to like watching a movie and then playing as a character in that movie. Like The Last of Us kind of almost broke my brain at that period of time when it came out, in terms of just, an experience that felt very converged with a movie experience and the cinematics. So, you mentioned God of War, and hopefully the series will do some justice.
Right.
Last of Us found its path, if you will, to kind of be different from the game. But like Nate was saying, like you've worked in both, film and games. You've had such a diverse experience in both sides. What do you think each medium can learn from each other?
Oh, that's very interesting. I think from the perspective of what film can learn from games, and you're seeing it take shape in a number of different ways now, it's how important that idea of sort of choice and interactive elements can really bring a different life to different moments for people, for audiences. You have certainly seen different people or different companies experience or experiment with that, pardon me, whether that's Netflix with the Black Mirror Bandersnatch. We actually have a project this year at Tribeca through our immersive program, Escape the Internet Part 1, that is like essentially that idea pushed to the nth degree. How many people can you get into an auditorium and force them to make choices? That's just essentially choose your own adventure on a democratic platform.
Wow.
So that's, I think that's an obvious sort of through line. As far as what games can take from film, I think you're already starting to see it, right? You're seeing the impact of cinematics and the scope and scale of that. But I think also even considering the earlier ages of film, silent film, because we're talking so much back and forth right now with regards to games, how these AAA budgets are ballooning to crazy sizes, right? And one of the pieces, it's a very complicated matrix, but one of the elements of that is certainly tied to the the necessity for high fidelity, the necessity for crazy cinematics that audiences are really looking for and gravitating towards. And you could find potentially some cheats. You could find some examples in those earliest eras of film where people were crafting experiences, crafting narratives that were still hooking audiences, but there was no dialogue. You weren't having, the fancies, the latest sort of in technology. And so I think those are sort of elements that can come through. And particularly on the indie side, it's curious to see what films right now like Backrooms and Obsession are doing in our current landscape. Projects that aren't made with like crazy $100 million budgets, but they are finding audiences like crazy. Like it's awesome to see the success that Cam Parsons and the team over at A24 has been able to have with Backrooms just this past weekend. So I think it is something where you're hopefully going to be able to see some of those lessons be learned. And obviously, we have indie devs who are doing such amazing things with really not really small, but smaller budgets compared to what these AAA studios may be working within. Look at the success that Blueprints had last year, that Dispatch had last year. I mean, like we're really seeing a lot of that, if you want to call it, in this golden age of indies come to fruition. So I think those are some pieces that can dovetail back and forth. But there's what excites me is the idea that multi-hyphenates are getting so interested in creating within both spaces, right? Because from their perspective, it is what medium is going to best allow me to craft the experience that I want for my audience, right? I think a lot of for certain creators I've heard, I want to create something that attracts me, and hopefully there are like-minded people out there who gravitate towards that. And I think that's where you're starting to find a lot of success. I don't think Kane Parsons was really like sitting in his room making Attack on Titan animations and things like that because he like wanted to make all the money in the world. It was something that he was very passionate about.
Passion, yeah.
Exactly. And he felt like, you know what? There might be other people who may be interested in it, but this is just what I want to see, and this is what I think is cool. And for me personally, also, that's what I tend to gravitate towards as well.
And it's interesting too because you think of you brought up Obsession and Backrooms as indie films that are making huge waves right now, and I think of it's interesting to see how the gaming space and the film space are both kind of in this weird area where it's like everything needs to be Avengers Endgame level money. Everything needs to be Fortnite, right? And it absolutely doesn't. And these unique independent developers are showcasing how they can tell unique independent stories. And I think that storytelling is really at the heart of kind of where we're noticing more success these days over the big budget sort of AAA stuff.
Money has a tendency to complicate things, right? Like it can often, like as much money as a developer or as a film can have, it's like, well, we got to spend this money, right? Like we have all this money to spend, and it's like finding more and more reasons to like write into a script or to develop an expansive part of the film so that it feels a lot more. And I think to the point of what you're saying, like these independent filmmakers and independent, gaming studios are able to tell a great story and be able to give you a great experience without having that massive budget, right? And maybe, as you're saying, the gaming industry can learn from this idea of embracing more independent studios and letting them kind of do their thing. We're obviously talking about Tribeca, and it's obviously known as a film festival for the longest time. It is branched out, and we're excited that we're seeing, so much more happening. And, for yourself, what role do you think games play in shaping the future of storytelling at Tribeca?
Well, one of the things that gravitated me towards working more in the space and trying in my little way to make some form of impact is the idea that games as a medium, frankly, is so young. And I don't say that in any sort of disrespectful way. If anything, that is a really cool idea to embrace. Like, film has been around for over 100 years. You've had, like literature around forever and a day, photography, music, so on and so forth. And within games, it feels like we are truly like scratching the surface of what this medium can be. I know I started with Ken Levine and Bioshock, and by no means do I want to make this a Ken Levine pod, but the idea of what he's working on right now with Judas and the idea of narrative Legos and like just how we can continue to prioritize player choice and have that be impactful throughout your full experience, how everyone can have their own sort of narrative framework or unpacking that's unique to their playthrough as well. We're seeing a lot of different elements of that now, but taking that to the next level and evolving that, I think is really exciting. I think also, frankly, the idea that as games gets older, it gets not only further democratized, but there are more people that are invited to play in the sandbox, right? Like, frankly, I remember coming up looking at G4. One of the reasons why I love looking at their different pieces of program is because it helped me understand who the hell makes games. Like, what does that even look like? What are the roles? Because we could understand what a film director is or screenwriter, but of course there are analogous or parallel roles on games, depending on the project. But I just didn't understand it. But then when you start to see the faces behind it, frankly, it was primarily a lot of white guys. I love Cliffy B, but I can only see Cliffy B so much before we start then breaking it out and having some different people who can have an impact or have some a sort of development insight into things. So just thinking of a few years ago, we had Despelote as part of the festival. Julian Cadero, like that project is it's just so amazing to think about. I grew up playing FIFA and loving football, and the idea that it doesn't need to be that sort of simulator one-to-one experience. We can craft a whole unique narrative onto this that is inspired very much by his lived experience. And I truly believe Julian only could make that game, could make the narrative revolved around that game. So I think those sort of pieces, those sort of things, as far as the sort of future of storytelling within the medium, watching all of those sort of pillars come together or have a divergent point, that's going to be really cool for us to get to in the next coming years and decades. But the technology is just going to keep getting crazier. Like we have the state of play later this afternoon.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys like me are very, very excited to see
Queued up right back there for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
like that hour is going to give me a lot to think about for the next few weeks, I'm sure. Not to even mention SGF this weekend. Jeff is a very huge friend of the festival, and it's been an honor to get to work with him on some things over the past few years. So I'm very excited to see what he has cooking up and ready to show everyone this weekend as well. So I think those are all there, but I certainly don't want to sit in this chair and act like I know exactly where it's going to end up. I think that sort of mystery box perspective of it is also thrilling. Like, who could have guessed a project like Blueprints was going to come around last year and do what it did? Like, even looking at Player Obscure, Expedition 33 on a different level. Final Fantasy X, one of the most important games in my life. I thought turn-based RPGs were, not necessarily taking a back seat, but we were just going through this shift where now action-forward RPGs were more of the mainstay. But look at what they did last year. Now I'm starting to see more indie devs pop out with their turn-based projects, so on and so forth. So I think we just have to sort of live in it and experience or appreciate how things are going to evolve organically and just see where it goes.
Yeah. Now you touched upon it a little bit there, but I did want to get into continuing the conversation on indie developers, and you mentioned who are like. We know directors, we see writers, we see the different people behind film,
Right.
but we don't really see that as much. And I think, getting to, G4, Tech TV, watching some of these different channels to finally see and understand who are these people, getting to see interviews. For us, it's EP Daily with Victor Lucas, right, and getting to enjoy watching him chat with the people behind these games. And so I think from a standpoint of independent developers, do you think that the independent game developers are getting the same recognition as indie filmmakers, or do we still have more of a bridge to build? And us as gamers, obviously, can enjoy and understand when we first started seeing the people behind the games. But do you think for the general public, in terms of how now, the conversation of our game's art is for the most part dead, I think, or dying, hopefully.
God, I hope so. I'm so tired of it. I'm so
Right.
tired of it.
But I think from a standpoint of the people behind games, do you think we still have a little bit of a ways to go before we see people that are, as recognizable as someone like Steven Spielberg or Christopher Nolan?
Uh, Definitely yes. I do want to take a step back and also say I acknowledge that one of the things that's happening with games as we grow on a pop culture level, and make no mistake, obviously, you guys know it well, well and throughout. Games are the most like sort of not sort of the most financially backed media in the world, without a doubt. But I think we don't need to always compare ourselves to the film lens, and I'm mindful that that's something that can hamstring us in a way as we continue down this path, down this journey. So I want to be mindful of that. But to the crux of your question, though, Nate, yeah, I think there's still like a more of a bridge to go there, because I think one of the things is with regards to the conversation around games, just look at what happened with the 007 First Light and that release. It's like I remember being on Twitter and the initial throngs of it, people were excited, and then how quickly it transitioned into a negative space, right? You see what happened with Mixtape, another Tribeca alum from last year, like we were so excited to see the success for that game for the Beethoven and Dinosaur team and Annapurna Interactive, and then to see that quickly shift into this sort of negative space. So I think one of the things that needs to happen is we need to have more voices to be able to have like not just intellectual but like mindful conversations about this medium, and to show it the care and like compassion that it needs. I think there's a lot of negativity that the medium gets mired in just because of how tied it is to technology, I think, frankly, and the kinds of people who have accessibility and voices on some of these platforms and where they take it. So that's one thing I will say, but it's as someone like Tonda from Blueprints can get some more acknowledgement and get some more moments. Now I know Tonda does not necessarily like the spotlight, so I won't talk about it. But he is a creator, I think, that is going to be doing so many incredible things. Look at the ad hoc team behind Dispatch, like even the team behind a project like Absalom. I mean, this year we have Trakuna supporting me from Another World, from Strange Scaffold. What Xavier has been able to do as a voice within the industry, and to watch him grow into himself in that has been amazing. So I think part of it is also the creators taking some more steps to be a bit more visible, and there is a terrifying nature to that. I will be like, this is terrifying for me. Like, there is no part of me that necessarily wants to be this guy front and center in this way. I will be very upfront about that.
Yeah.
But someone has to do it, and I think it is important for us to have voices that can speak to what this is, what this means to us, what this means culture.
Yeah. I wonder too, based on that, like, if the gaming community is more siloed and loves to like kind of just live in that space and not be as outward facing, if you will, like, having to talk about it. There probably are a few people that really love to and know and understand like the PR marketing aspects of like putting yourself out there, talking about your game, talking about what went into it. But I wonder if there's a large amount of people that probably do want to kind of stay in the shadows and enjoy from a distance, read what people have to say. But then also, like you said, the internet is, everyone has an opinion on the internet nowadays, right? Like, and it's very easy to find people who have negative opinions, you know what I mean, about something. But when there is positivity, when there is love and excitement around something, it does flourish like immensely, right? So it does go both ways. So I can imagine that some people don't want to necessarily see all of that at the same time. They might want to stay a little bit more hidden from it all.
But I do wonder though, if like it's like, and maybe not. I mean, it's so easy to think so negatively of just how the internet just chews things up and destroys things. I remember finishing Mixtape and absolutely adoring it, and then hopping onto the internet and everyone's just saying all sorts of horrible, heinous things, and it makes you want to get off of it at times. But I do wonder sometimes, from a humanity standpoint, right? Growing up when we were little, we were thinking, I love these games, but we never for a second would think about the people behind them.
Yeah.
And so I feel like there's still so many people out there. And I do wonder if having more of a presence in the public eye as the people behind the games, if that would maybe, hopefully, I don't know, cull a little bit of that negativity, because now you're no longer, yelling at a game, you're yelling at a person. But
I guess
maybe I'm wrong.
The internet is going to internet, right? And
Exactly.
people probably want to avoid that. They want to do their thing and see it be a success and be a part of a team, right? Because it's just like movies in the sense of production teams. There's so much energy, so much time that is spent, which is why it's so hard to see some games and studios just suddenly shut down or close or cancel projects and stuff like that with the amount of energy and as you mentioned, Casey, funding that goes into it, and suddenly it's disappearing. It's one of those things where we're talking about with budgets getting too big, you know what I mean, and ballooning, and then that budget's so big, but the success of the game might not necessarily meet that so they're not going to necessarily make it back, and here we are. And it's the same thing that happens in the movie industry all the time as of lately, right? So
Yeah, I mean, I saw the headline. I didn't have the opportunity because I was busy running around getting ready for the fest. But I saw a headline regarding GTA 6 that's like, oh, GTA 6 is getting too big for anyone to seek success with it, or something along those lines. And I'm like, how are we here talking about this with Grand Theft Auto of all of all projects? That's insane to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's going to be a really interesting thing, to the point of, creatives being more front and center, but also being mindful. Yes, it takes teams of varying scales to make these projects. Even if you might have a solo developer in one sort of rung or one stage of production, inevitably you're bringing some more people along in whatever fashion to help get something out there. But as someone who's worked with creatives through all mediums, that idea that some people are just more forward and extroverts and some people are just more introverts is a real thing. I've had to set up enough parties with creatives just to see the workings of that in real time. And that's okay. I think, you guys do a great job in helping folks feel comfortable when they get within your space. I've seen a number of your interviews, and that's just clear.
Oh, thank you.
It's just part of your nature and who you are. And I think having more people, having more voices who are coming from a similar lens will go a long ways. I'm not going to sit here again and act like I have all the answers, but I just think it's something that we have to be mindful of. Xavier and I talk about this all the time. It's not a moment to batten down the hatches and really sort of sit in it in fear or just let it all happen in front of us. There is a necessity to participate, I think, and that doesn't mean we'll always get it right. We're all humans. The mistakes will happen. It's part of it. I think everyone has to walk with a measure of grace alongside that. But yeah, it's just how I think we're going to be able to continue to lift the medium and help people understand what it is that they're actually a part of and experiencing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, we touched upon the internet, some of the negativity from reactions of people, but let's go to a space where all the reactions I know are just going to be popping off, which is this festival. And I wanted to kind of ask, I've been looking at the games. I haven't had a chance to go hands-on with any of them myself personally, and I know Justin hasn't, but we really want to for a lot of them. But I wanted to ask, what are you most excited for attendees to get their hands on this year? And I know you probably have already gotten your hands on maybe all of them, but for yourself, then what is one game that you are really looking forward to digging even deeper into?
Oh man, I've definitely played everything. Every project that comes through the competition, I get hands on as part of the consideration process. So it's been a real joy to see. There are a number of titles we didn't select that honestly I'm hoping that folks get an opportunity to experience out in the wild whenever they release. But as far as what we have as official selections, to choose one of my favorite children, as it were, I think Demian the Fractured Dream Yarnau, Annapurna's again behind that. I've been excited about that project for a while. And I don't know if you all saw the initial announcement, but getting to hear those guys just talk about the inspirations behind it, old school Zelda with a sort of new school flair and flavor, updated or sort of contemporary combat and exploration ideas, things like that, but really having at its essence that sort of old school Zelda vibe and touch to it. I think even in this current state, and they have a long road to go, I know, they nailed it. Like, and I'm just so excited for people to experience more of that world and more of that universe. I think that team has something really special on their hands. So that's definitely one that I think once folks actually get hands on, whenever it makes it out in the wild, is going to be a really exciting project. And I'll be honest, some of these games like we track, and some of these studios or creators we track over the course of years. So like as soon as that got publicly announced, it was immediately on my radar, and I let's just say chased it quite heavily just to consider it. This wasn't even necessarily an automatic in, but just to consider it. From the team at Annapurna, and they were gracious enough to give us an opportunity to get hands-on and really spend some time with it as part of the cycle. So yeah, I would say that's a big one. But honestly, all these projects, they will all, I'm sure, find their unique fan bases, and there will certainly be some overlap. But one of the things I'm proud of with regards with this selection, my first primarily at the helm, is just the breadth of it. I think my predecessor, Casey Baltez, that was always something she had in mind, and that was something we immediately clicked on. It's like, I remember my first boss in programming said, if you love everything, if everything in your program is your favorite thing, then you're probably not doing it right. There should be some things that it doesn't mean you dislike, but you understand that it is also there and hopeful to find an audience or attract someone who may not necessarily be into the thing that you are head over heels for. And so I have really grown to appreciate and love all these games in their own individual way and what they bring to the table. And frankly, they all actually speak to some part of me that has been part of my journey to get here.
Yeah, I was going to actually ask, I wanted to slip this question in regards to this, but when you're evaluating games for this festival, what are the qualities that stand out to you? What is ultimately that makes this game feel like it fits the festival in a way, right? And obviously, like you said, there's a curation, there's an editorial process, there's a bit of a you as well included in that equation. So what is it that you're looking for as you select games? Because you selected 12 this year. That's great. Like how last year you said it was 7?
Last year was 9. Yeah.
9. So okay, so we've jumped up 3 more, right? Yeah. So what are you looking for, and how do you make that selection?
So as far as what we're looking for, everything we do at the festival sits within a bedrock of storytelling, right? We really care about engaging and unique stories with regards to the festival. So that is, again, where everything sits. And then above that, for me personally, gameplay is a very important element to it. Now, some of these games are heavier on gameplay, some are lighter, but I think the way that the gameplay intersects with all these different other aspects of the experience really can heighten what you're taking in as a player, as an audience member. So I think that's the other thing that I'm looking for as well. And then, to also say, there are so many factors, right?
Yeah,
that play into whether we select something or not. And I'm not going to speak on any specific titles now, but there are also things that maybe we want to move forward with, but can't happen. And this happens every year. And it's not just an occasion this year, but it can't happen because the team just can't make it fit within their production bandwidth or whatever the aspects might be. So there's a lot of factors that go in there. But I think the other thing for me is just having an experience or having time with a project that I just can't stop thinking about. Like, you guys know it well enough yourselves. You get a review code in, or you pick up a project from the store and you're booted up at night. All of a sudden it's 3, 4 a.m. and you can't believe you're still in front of your TV, you're still in front of your monitor playing this thing.
I know that's Nate for sure. That's definitely
I mean, that's First Light for me, for sure. Playing the 007. Oh man, I've already rolled credits. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm loving it. Yeah.
And I think there's something indescribable to that. Even though I just described it in a way, but truly, if you were to sort of unpack it for someone, you'd just be unspooling all these emotions and thoughts over a period of time. So I think that's something as well. Like there are a number of projects. I'm based in New York City, and we had a snowstorm earlier this year. I think it was that one that came through in February. We had one in February, one in January, and both times I had like my blinds open in my apartment. I could see the snow rolling through, and I'm just playing games for the festival, playing through these considerations. And when I tell you, it's like top three gaming experiences of my life because it's just something that you're just in it. You're there with these moments, with these games, and there is truly nothing like it. So I try to always put myself in. If I were an audience member walking through Pier 57, which is where all the games are playable, fun fact, free and open to the public, you can see something. Maybe it's a piece of art. Maybe it's someone playing a game and think, oh, that looks interesting. That looks cool. And I want you, when whoever that person is, when you step into or take a seat and pick up that controller, you lose yourself in it. Like, I really want people to have at least one moment like that. We have 12 games. Not all of them is going to give that to you, but I want someone to find that. And I think that's part of the magic of a festival, right? Like, I have been to so many festivals over my young career, and you don't love everything, but you are able to engage with things in really surprising ways, and you have things that will take you on journeys that you could have never anticipated, and that's the magic sauce from my perspective.
Yeah, we actually got to attend TIFF for the first time.
Oh, I love TIFF.
And that was such a phenomenal experience for us. And, we're the geek-centric podcast, so we were like, how many of these things are really going to fit within what we would normally cover as geeks within geek culture? But the experience of going and just being like, all right, we're going to go see this movie, this foreign film, and see what it's all about, and sit with it and understand it and watch it. And yeah, you're absolutely right. It pulls you in, and I think for the same thing with independent games. I'm looking at the list, and I was looking at some of the trailers. Demi and the Fractured Dream, yes, very much giving like that Zelda. I also kind of got like a little bit of like the Pathless and like Journey vibes in there as well. I think two of the trailers I watched from this festival both have characters surfing on sand.
Loft Song, yeah.
Yes, dude.
Loft Song was
Song.
crazy, man. Oh, I am such a fan of that game. Like, Alessandro and his team out of Italy, they're coming from all different walks of life with like different art creative backgrounds, and this is their first project together, and this team is Unrelated Studio. My goodness, like the level of execution here is so high, and the art style is also so incredible, like the brutalist architecture that they're working with, which actually I'm also having him specifically on a panel about maximalist aesthetics, which obviously that game is not. But as I told Alessandro, I'm like, I love the different perspective actually you're bringing to it, because I think we've been stuck in a time where so much of our design and aesthetic sort of frameworks from fashion on down were really sitting within this minimalist space, right? And now it feels like whatever we're going to call the Roaring 20s or whatever this crazy moment in our culture is, like, you're getting a lot more maximalist sort of approaches, I think. Even something like I Love Boosters, Boots Riley's new project, I saw on their Twitter account, they just did a cool little like maximalist fashion thing at one of their premieres, which was awesome to see. So it's I think it's going to be all the games are having this conversation with each other in real time that I think is going to be really interesting to sort of look back on in a year or two.
I love that conversation piece, because something with like Control Resonant, which I think for me, when that was the first thing that I saw on the list, I immediately popped off as a huge Control fan. But from the standpoint of something like Loft Song, you talk about it being minimalist. I also would argue, though, that the audio from hearing that in that trailer is maximalist, but also very much reminiscent of something like you would hear in Control. So it's great to sort of see how you've got at all different levels from these different developers, these different games, but that are having these conversations that are talking to each other. But then you also have something like Rebounder, which feels like it's something I've never seen before. And we have to shout them out. I think they're a Canadian developer.
Yes, they are.
So as a Canadian podcast, it is our duty to shout out 33 Games. But that game, I mean, I'm getting into the independent comic book space. I know our shout out to our friend Fred, who's a independent comic book artist, and yeah, he, getting to see some of this artwork, it's like, this looks like a independent comic book come to life. Can you talk about Rebounder at all?
Rebounder is fantastic. Jordan and his team over at 33, like, it's been such a joy to work with them. I turned on that game for the first time, and I just didn't want to stop playing it. Like, I could have easily sunk 300 hours into that, no problem. But that would have been a problem for the rest of the program. But Rebounder is just so cool, man. As someone who also grew up as a fan of comic books, like the ink pulp comic or graphic novel art style is just so rich. And talk about sound design and really creating an expansive universe. Like, that game says a lot, but also is very mindful to hold some things close to its vest. Like, I just have so many questions. And there are things I pose to Jordan, and he's like, you have to play the full game to see? I don't know. And I'm like, you know what, man? I love it. Keep the mystery alive. Yeah. But if you're a fan of platformers, like, if you're a fan of just something that has incredible, like, game feel, like, once you really have that controller experience with that game, it's hard to put down. And it's so easy to jump back into it. I do not pick all these games by myself. I want to make sure folks know that it is a small team effort. I have two play testers who work under me, Lydia Claw and Philip Bali, who've both worked within the industry in their own right. And we had such a wonderful conversation about this game, because it's like, there's just so much that it pulls from your own imagination, and so much that it creates for you to jump back again into the experience where you failed a platforming attempt, right back into it, and it even feels pulpy in that way, which is a really exciting thing. So I'm going to be curious to see how folks gravitate towards it. I'm going to be really curious to see how the entire narrative revolved around that takes shape. They have a lot of interesting ideas there. So yeah, Rebounder is great. But also on the Canada front, we have Rivage as well, another project from Raw Fury, X&O Studios. So that is like crazy, timey-wimey puzzle adventure that, as someone who is very much steeped in sci-fi and love genre projects myself, like, that game is very much for anyone who lives in that world. So on the Canada front, just wanted to shout out Rivage as well.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Remind the Canadians. Love it. I love it. Well, you've obviously been busy playing games and reading, watching movies. It seems like you very much love the pop culture atmosphere. So, to wrap our interview, in many cases, we have this segment called Whatchya, where we ask each other and our guests, what they're currently enjoying. So, Casey, what you watching? What you playing? And what should be on our radar right now?
Oh my God, what I'm watching, what I'm playing. So this is actually a little bit of an older project, but I just caught up on Pantheon on Netflix. I don't know if you've watched that. It's an animated series that premiered initially on AMC. I believe it was an AMC Plus series, so some people may have missed it from that POV. But the setup essentially is a young girl's father passes away, or she believes passes away, and then one day she gets, she's being bullied in school and things like that, but one day she gets a chat message essentially from a mysterious figure, and it turns out it is her father transmitted into cyberspace. And from there it just goes into all these insane, really rich, exciting spaces. But I just finished that, and it's been on my list for a while to catch up with, but programming and curatorial work takes a lot of time. So, that's been a really fun project to really sit with and watch. I binged that like over the course of a couple nights.
It's a great cast, too. There's a great cast in there. Paul Dano, Aaron Eckhart.
Yes, a really incredible piece. So I would say that. Cool. That's definitely one to for folks to check out. And then also, I mentioned Backrooms and Obsession. Very much spending time with those projects and just see. I'm always curious about what's happening in the genre horror space on any level, whether that's theatrical releases, even what's happening on YouTube. It's funny again to think, or not funny, but interesting to think about how some of these creators are getting their, opportunity through the YouTube
Yes.
creation space, right?
Yeah.
And that ends up being a foundation for them as they take, the reins of their own creative careers. So that's been a really fun thing to watch. And to watch. I don't know if y'all know Glitch Studios. Glitch Studios makes all these wonderful series on YouTube as well. Like I would check out their stuff. I've also been going down a rabbit hole with a lot of their things as lately. So I'm really just trying to keep up with a lot of the different things that way. I will also say I'm a big music person. So if you don't know the group Infinity Song is awesome. Mona Boy, she is like a crazy level artist. She was actually just featured on Baby Keem's recent album. So I would definitely say if you're a fan of like indie pop rock fusion, like they just play with a lot of different soundscapes. I listen to them, and also Boards of Canada as well. Like I think that might be up y'all's wheelhouse. Maybe not with the Canada of all, but Boards of Canada just released a new project like that's incredible. So a few different things there for you guys.
Very
Okay.
cool. And are you playing any games outside of the festival? Like, are there any games that are currently hooking you?
Right now, I'm diving back into Hades 2 because now that we've had the full 1.0 release, I've been trying to really make some grounds or headway in that again. And then I have to jump into 007 First Light too. And like I haven't had the opportunity since we are ramping up, obviously, here for the
Yes.
fest.
Yeah, you're
but
busy.
that's another one where I'm really interested to see what happens. I've been spending a lot of time with No Rest for the Wicked as they've gone from the initial early access to now the 1.0 release. So it's really cool to see them now out in the wild with that. So that's another project that I'm really excited for folks
That's Moon Studios, right? The
Yep.
same Ori devs?
Yep, that's
Yeah.
them. One and
Okay,
the same.
sick.
Yeah. So
Very
if
cool.
you're a fan, right, of the Souls-like sort of experience, this is very much analogous to that, but gorgeous, gorgeous art style in that game as well.
There's an Ozzy Osbourne song, wasn't it? That name too?
No Rest
That-
for the Wicked?
Yeah, No Rest for the Wicked. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. I was wondering.
R.I.P.
I was
Ozzy.
wondering. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Casey, thank you so much for joining us today. The Tastemaker. Casey.
Nate, don't start this. Don't start this, Nate. This is how I get in trouble.
I love it. I mean, again, working with your team to all be tastemakers at the festival. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to go deeper and giving us a deeper look at the games program and the incredible work being done at Tribeca. I think the biggest thing is what are some key dates for people who are listening? What are some dates you need them to be aware of, and where can they go to find more information about the fest?
Yeah, thank you guys so much for the time and the energy. This has been a wonderful conversation. As far as where to get more information, tribecafilm.com. If you click on the tab on the left-hand side and click programs, you'll find, or festival, pardon me, you'll find all of the information on all our different projects, but there is a space or a button just for you to click games, and you will see our full games program. The dates for the Games Gallery, which is again free and open to the public at Pier 57, that's going to be June 10th through the 14th. Our hours on June 10th and June 14th, that Wednesday and Sunday, are going to be 12 to 5 p.m. And then the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, they're in between 12 to 7 p.m. But again, that's at Pier 57 in the living room, specifically within Pier 57, but we'll definitely have signage to point folks in the right direction. Please come check us out. And then we have a number of those special events, as I mentioned. The Control Resonant event will have creative director Mikhail Kasurinin in conversation with Nia DaCosta, the incredible filmmaker that she is.
Come on.
I'm just so thankful she's making some time for us. She's working on Sex Criminals in pre-production right now. So as you can imagine, crazy busy. But I think that's going to be a hell of a conversation, so looking forward to that. And then through the Storytelling Summit, we have 3 different experiences as well. We have Absurd Ventures. Actually, didn't even mention that. Dan Houser is going to be at the festival, everybody. The guy who co-created Grand Theft Auto. Like, that's amazing. And, you know, Dan, Laszlo, and some of their creative partners, they don't do this a lot, so it's a real treat and a real honor to be able to welcome them to Tribeca this year. So that's going to be Saturday the 13th through the Storytelling Summit. And then I mentioned earlier that maximalist aesthetics conversation. I believe that's going to be on Friday afternoon. And then we have a conversation revolved around sound design, world building through sound design and soundscapes on Saturday morning as well through the summit. So you can get more information on the Storytelling Summit and if anyone's interested in badges for that on the website as well. But we've got a lot going on, and I couldn't be prouder and happier to be able to shepherd this program and work with my colleagues to bring this forward. So hopefully folks get to have a good time and check everything out.
And we will have all those details in the show notes.
And I would say whether or not you're getting a chance to attend or not, definitely going to that website and just clicking on all those links, clicking on all those games, looking at all the YouTube videos, the different trailers for these games. Because, I mean, you know, I can imagine playing them will pull me in even more. But even watching some of these trailers, I'm like, I'm in. I'm in, locked in. I'm invested. Casey, thanks again so much for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.
Love it. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
All right.
Thank you so
Peace,
much.
man.